Hello, everybody, and welcome to the North American Star League. This is week number 3. I am Jeff, In Control Robinson, and to my right, that is not a model. That is actually Greetorp. Greetorp, what's your first and last name as well?
My first name is Andre. My last name is Hengshua.
Age, sex, and location?
23.
Yes, gotcha.
That's
Boom.
pretty clever.
Headshot. We're going to get that one out of the way right now for this week. That's the only time we're going to hear it.
I'm trying not to say boom or headshot this week.
Indeed, whatsoever.
Yeah.
He's
I'll
the
replace
kind of guy.
it. I'll replace it.
We'll replace it. That's fine. Whatever.
I know.
Whatsoever. Well, anyways, welcome to the North American Star League. We're really excited. It's been a great first 2 weeks. Obviously, there's some growing pains, but we're getting them out of the way. Week number 2 has shown us some great games, some amazing results. We do have Team Liquid surging back, and we will see TLO play today, so look to see that story continue or take a different turn. But before we get to talking about the matchups, let's go ahead and just get a couple things out of the way. Again, if you're on that low-quality stream, do consider getting the high-quality stream. It is better frame rate, better picture, and better everything, actually. Also helps support us so that we can do more seasons of this and continue to bring you guys awesome, awesome games. If that's not for you, then wait. Or if you're just vehemently against it, joke's on you, you're still watching right now. So thank you very much for helping us out. Wellplayed.org. Let's go ahead. Greetorp, who's playing today?
All right. Well, today we have Phoenix versus Vibe, Maro versus Kiwikaki. The game 3 is Artosis versus Moon. We have Grubby versus Chef, and our anchor today is a certain one, TLO versus Rainbow.
I'm really excited for that matchup. I think it's a TVT, and TLO loves his TVT. Before we talk too much about that, I keep, like, each time he names these matchups, I get, like, pulled in, like, I want to talk about that, I want to talk about that, but I won't just yet. As a friendly reminder, this is the pregame show. It's going to be about 25-30 minutes of us yapping about StarCraft 2 related stuff. A lot of people have called it dry. Some people have called it boring. Some people have just said it's stupid. They want the games. Where are the games? Where are the games? This is not the games. We're just going to talk about StarCraft 2. Tune in 25 minutes. Go walk your dog. Do some push-ups. Check out In Control stream. Make a note to check out In Control stream later, I think is what you should actually be doing. But like 25 minutes worth of you reminding yourself to do that. Or Greetorp stream as well. Both of those just slap a TV at the end. Enough self-promoting, actually. I'm going to cut that off. The maps for today. Now, this is week number 3, which means, ladies and gentlemen, we have cleansed our map pool. They are updated. Ooh. We tried to do it diplomatically last week where we asked everyone, hey, can we change them? The replies were very slowly dribbling in. StarCraft 2 players have a lot on their plate, apparently. So that's fine. We couldn't do it last week. This week they are changed. That means no close positions. That in Shattered Temple and Metalopolis. That also means the GSL maps have been updated to their most current and regularly used form. So we're really happy about that. But let's talk about the maps real quick. We have first Xel'Naga Caverns. Success.
Debut. 2,
the Shattered Temple. And then 3, Terminus Re. So starting off with Xel'Naga Caverns, Greetorp, what do you think of that map?
This has to be one of my favorite maps.
Yes.
Xel'Naga Caverns is it's a pretty balanced map, I would say. There are a little bit of problems for me, actually, my style, but I think it's one of the most balanced maps that exists in our entire map pool. This is, I guess, the gridiron of a 1v1 position. I mean, we always talk about Metalopolis as being the gridiron in general, but if we're talking about a one-on-one where we know where our opponents are, that's like an extra metagame level. You can cheese blindly because you know where your opponent is, and you can do a lot of clever little things because you're always starting on those setups. I think it just makes for very intelligent games that become very viewable.
Let me pull your opinion on this. Is this our first 1v1 map?
Yes.
It is. And I think that adds a whole different element and component to this group, into just the map pool in general. What that means is to harp on Greetorp's point a little bit, you know exactly where your opponent's spawning, so cheese becomes a little bit more prevalent. There are cannon rushes on Xel'Naga Tower, or Caverns, excuse me. There are bunker rushes, actually, that are quite powerful. But just in general, like proxy buildings, that kind of a thing, you know exactly where they are, so you can cut down on scout timing. The travel distance between the two bases is not ages and ages. It's not necessarily really, really quick. It's no... Steps of War. I blanked on it. That's actually probably a good thing. We need to forget about that map. But it's not an imbalanced map. Nobody says, oh, Xel'Naga Caverns, this is ridiculous. I can't win as X. Nobody says that. It's a very balanced map. But as a 1v1 map, again, look to see more very, very refined timings pushed here because the map is one-dimensional. It's not. There's no factor of, well, if they spawn 3 o'clock and I'm 12 o'clock or whatever, then I get to do this. It's the same thing every time from both places.
Well, that's another great point that you mentioned. Yeah. I mean, because we know where we're spawning, and there is basically symmetry across the horizontal axis. Well, sort of. Not really, but it's like flipped. But still, because that exists, what you end up having is a lot more time that's spent in practice going towards these positions, whereas, for instance, Metalopolis, when we trained, we had to train close positions, we had to train cross positions,
close
and we had to in close air. So that's 3 different almost matchups in the same matchup, or 3 different ways to play in the same matchup. In Zelda Caverns, we have one way, so everybody's refined. They have their their timings. For example, you can have timing pushes. That's one style of playing, where you just go and attack the natural or something, or it could be anything like that. And there are other timings. I have a timing where I just push to my gold and defend that. Yeah. That's another timing where you get a very quick gold expansion. So you see a lot more refined timings, I think, in this map, more so than we see in other maps, just because you have more time to practice the same matchup.
I agree, absolutely. And a couple other things to look for here as well. Zelda got the towers on either side of the middle portion of this map. Very important. They let you know about the high-yield expansions. They also kind of, I mean, they just have very relevant information. There's some maps with the towers aren't that big of a deal, but anytime they're kind of in the middle of the map, they become that much more important. So look to see those and who's controlling them, who's being mindful of them. Additionally, this map is a 1v1 map, but it actually has a lot of potential for hidden expansion. Those side bases get forgotten quite often, especially if you take the one that's not like natural to you. So if you're at the top of the map and you take the lower right one, that one's considered the southern guy's like third natural, if you want to call it, or even fourth base. So there's a lot of tomfoolery that can occur there, and a lot of play based on that. Also, the high yield expansions are not the most dangerous high yield expansions in the map pool. Rather, they are in the middle of the map. They are very accessible all around them, but they're fairly narrowed down. I mean, like Retope was saying, if you put a planetary fortress there, you're in a pretty good spot. And a Zerg taking it or a Protoss taking it, it's not like it's like, oh, that's such a dramatic risk, on face value. So kind of a good macro map in that sense. But again, I really like the idea that it's a good macro map, but if you have a timing worked out, if you have cheese worked out, or just straight up play, this is your map. I think all those things are really, really available to you.
Yes. So, I'm really looking forward to this again. I mean, it's one of my favorites, so hopefully we will see good games, as we have a pretty good lineup of players, of a cast, if you will.
This group is not disappointing. I mean, we got to portion our time well, but we'll talk about the map or the matchups. But yeah, like this group of guys, they turn out some good games. I'm excited. Now, game number 2, or match number 2 rather, map number 2. There's a third one. Third time's a try. That's not even correct. The Shattered Temple. I'm just gonna move on. The Shattered Temple, again, we had close positions removed, which means that there's no kind of Shakira's Plateau back alleyway of old, meaning if you're a Protoss or Terran and you push through that expansion area, you're not automatically sieging the base of a Zerg player, or even your opponent just in general, if it's Terran or Protoss. So that's been removed. There is close air positions and there is cross-map positions. So it's effectively like a 3-player map, I guess you could call it.
Yeah.
We used to see that a lot in Brood War. Now it's a 4-player map, but with only 3 spawning locations available to the 2 players. So it kind of trims that down, but I like that. I think that makes for more effective macro maps. Now, we've seen the Shattered Temple a couple of times. What are your thoughts on this map?
I personally love it. The style, you have to always go mass units because of that very open the open area in the middle.
Yeah.
And that's the main way you traverse anything. And if you want to stay alive with your army and not risk the concave, or the potential concave of your opponent, you have to scale in the amount of units. So a lot of times we see defensive play. You take your third at the island expansion in the top left or the bottom right, depending on when you spawn. And from there, you just build up a ton of units, and you clash at around 170 to 200 supply. That's what we see a lot of times on this map, and I just like that. I like the build, the build up. I used to play the No Rush 20 minutes game when I was younger, and I was always amazing at it, of course.
I would imagine. Yeah.
But yeah, I love those big battles, and we get to see a lot of high intensity micro battles in that mid-end game.
One of the things I like about this map is that I feel like it allows, again, for a player to kind of play to their style in the sense that if you're a hardcore macro player, this map is great for you. There is that island expansion right next to your natural, which means if you take that and you kind of be mindful of the destructible rocks at the back door or protect them even if you're a Protoss or Terran, then that base is pretty much locked down. But there's also the high yield expansion, which again is not the most dangerous high yield expansion of all these maps. It's fairly defendable, and it's pretty natural to your base location. So if you want, there are 4 bases readily available to you to expand to and just protect and turtle up. But also, for the players that kind of work out timings or rushes or just their high aggressive style is necessary for them to win, then this is a good map for that too. It's not like there's this tiny, tiny choke at the natural that you could never attack in 1,000 years. It's actually fairly open. There's also a large main base landmass, meaning that you can hop up, you can proxy structures up there, you can drop secretly, you can Nidus Worm. You have strategies available to you that you can actually execute fairly well. And I feel like this map kind of offers the full breadth of StarCraft 2 play, and I really like that when a map doesn't hinder the player in that sense. Now, there is only one Xel'Naga tower, and it's pretty important. It is right smack dab in the middle of the map. You can skirt around it. You can travel around it. It's not like that, you know, the dad that doesn't sleep well. He's like a light sleeper, and you're trying to get downstairs, and he always wakes up and sees you.
Don't wake daddy.
Yeah.
I know. It's the what is it? Hasbro? Do you know what I'm talking about? It's called Don't Wake Daddy.
They're probably, yeah.
Because
that was real life for me.
Wake Daddy.
Because I played StarCraft like 12, 13 years ago, and, you know, I was 12, 13 at the time, and you were not allowed to wake up at 8 a.m. to go play StarCraft, especially with a dial-up modem. Oh my God! Does anyone remember the dial-up modem?
I would wake up at 6 a.m., call up my friend, and I'd have the cell phone placed on my desk on speakerphone. And I play StarCraft 2v2s.
It's like the prevent Skype days. That's nice, man. I was not that smart. I would just... okay, well, a little bit of a backstory, I guess. I used to have... Okay, when I was young, my mom didn't like cursing on the internet. So she actually put in our like computer security process curse words or all caps as disconnect cues. So I played a competitive career at a young age. And if a guy was losing to me... they would always like, well, I'm losing, F-bomb, and it would just disconnect me instantly, so instant win for them. But here's a nice fact about how nice people were back then. That didn't happen that often. Everyone knew about it. People would let me win. So, kind of cool. But that's like the worst
That's hilarious.
tangent we've... Yeah, it's pretty good history there. But anyways, that's a huge tangent. The Shattered Temple, again, with that middle Xel'Naga tower is very, very relevant, very important. But I also want to focus on something Greetorp talked about earlier. The map is very open in the middle of the map, meaning concave is very easy to obtain, and any kind of middle of the map altercations are very precarious. I know it's really good for Zerg, in particular against Protoss, but also to a certain extent against Terran. But it's also good for Terran against Protoss in the sense that the force fields, you need a lot more to get the same effect.
Exactly, and I think, to a degree, I think Protoss have a little bit more trouble just because the expansions are very far away, and that's where Zerg and Terran really find themselves most advantageous against that, because you can do the drop play, because you can take advantage of the Protoss force not being out of great position.
Yeah,
and I think it makes her a lot nicer matchup because you see a much more mobile army. You see Blink Stalkers much faster than normal. And, of course, you see Colossus timings as well. But you don't see that, I'm just going to sit and then take this one position as Protoss. And then, okay, after this one engagement, I have a huge advantage.
Right.
You're going to see a much more fluid, I think, Protoss. It's going to be a breath of fresh air. A breath of fresh air.
A breath of fresh air.
A breath of fresh air.
Could be a brush, too, though.
Could be a brush.
That'd be kind of cool. If they had a brush that gave me fresh air, I would actually use it. Number 3 would be Terminus Arena. This is a map that we've actually seen quite a bit, and it's yielded some fantastic games. Again, this is the updated version, so there will be no high-yield expansions in the middle of that map, which is great. I think those kind of complicated the matchup, or the map for a lot of people. This is the big macro map. I mean, certainly Xel'Naga Caverns can have an argument, so can Shadow Temple, but you can also talk about how they are more, other strategies are very viable here. This map has 2 expansions readily available to each starting location, meaning that it encourages macro play tremendously. Now, one point I want to make about this Greetorp is we've talked about this a lot. It's either a giant macro map or it's a super cheesy map because it's a giant macro map.
Yeah, we've seen that with the Morrow TLO games when he did a very fast push. TLO, actually, I think. And then he overextended, and then Morrow was like, okay, I'll continue on that. We've seen that, and we've seen games where both players just settle down and don't do anything forever. The
Artosis Chef comes to mind.
Artosis Chef, even TLO versus Vibe, we saw that happen. And both times were pretty sick.
Yeah.
I mean, it made for very, very exciting games. Even, Phoenix versus Kiwikaki.
Yeah.
That was pretty exciting as well. So the styles range all over the place, and when you have such quality players playing this, it can only lead. I think Terminus 3 is a great spectator map.
I do too, yeah. Yeah, I mean, just to go on that point, this is our kind of solid game number 3 map. I really feel like this is where, I mean, I hope we see some 1-1s go to game 3 because this is an awesome deciding map. I'm just going to let the map speak for itself. Those are the functions that we're kind of excited about with all 3 of those maps. Let's talk about the matchups now. Now, starting at number 5, we have Liquids, the Little App Factory, TLO versus StarTale Rainbow. And Rainbow's 0-2.
Yeah, Rainbow is on the back foot. And TLO, he's coming off a pretty tough loss as of last week. Losing tomorrow, he was up that 3rd game. But, it is what it is. And
he got clowned on a little bit, too.
He did. He
double
got
LOLs.
Double LOLs. But, I mean, he has a lot to say. I'm sure he's looking to get back into it. And Rainbow hasn't been performing too well. And I'm pretty sure TLO's TVT is pretty solid. I'm looking forward to this match because TLO, I mean, God, he's always a constant force to be reckoned with.
Well, I want to say this in defense of Rainbow. I agree with you. In the first week, in particular, I feel like he was very lackluster against Morrow. Of course, he got Baneling. He got tomfooleried a little bit. Morrow Baneling busted him and then had some kind of, I guess, Rainbow tried a bunker rush and he kind of got it thrown in his face a little bit. So, or a proxy barracks, rather. But in his series against Chef, I really saw the Star League level player that I've been hearing about and seeing the results from. An amazing series. If any of you guys have that high quality pass and want to check out some VODs, check out Chef versus Rainbow. All 3 of those games. Also, make sure you have like 7 hours to do it because that is a marathon series, man. But all 3 of those games are fantastic. In particular, game number 1 and 2. And I'm really excited because, again, it's easy to say, okay, Koreans are underperforming. Some of them. We do have some dominant Koreans. We'll talk about those guys later in the week. But Rainbow, certainly no one's like, well, of course he'll go 0-2. He's not that great of a player. No, everyone thinks he's a pretty great player, but he has a lot of pride. I look to this matchup on this day to see an even newer Rainbow. I think he's going to be like, well, screw that. I'll be damned if I go 0-3 in this league. And it's going to be a question of can TLO hold off the onslaught?
Well, not only that, we get to see Rainbow's TVT for the first time.
Yes.
He has been matched up against 2 Zergs. First was Morrow, TLO's eventual victor.
Yep.
And then it was Chef. And that was a very, very close series. So I hope... Well, we'll see. I mean, everybody loves TVT. You love TVT. I love TVT. Yeah. And I know most of the players that I talk to love TVT themselves, and they say, this is my best matchup. Now, I don't know if I can extrapolate that to Rainbow just yet, but I've seen a lot of Koreans play TVT, and they're pretty sick. And if that's any indication of what we're in for, then we're in for a lot, sir.
I know, and I'm so happy that that's our anchor. I really... every time TVT comes up, I say the same thing, but I love it. I think we're in... And you know what? We've had a great track record. There's been no TVT so far where it's like, okay, all right, we're done with that. There's been some great ones. Yeah. So look to that as match number 5. Match number 4 is going to be Grubby versus FXO Chef. Now, Grubby just took 3rd place at the Copenhagen Invitational.
He's no joke, man.
And, dude, that had some amazing gamers.
Yeah.
He did well.